For the DGCA exam, everything you need to know about flight procedures, instrument design, and keeping an aircraft from hitting the ground is defined by a single manual, PANOPS Document 8168. Volume 1 covers the actual flight procedures, and Volume 2 breaks down the strict visual and instrument design criteria. Before we break down the exact mathematics of those procedures, take a second to like this video, share it with your study group, and subscribe to Pilot Arnav's channel to crush your CPL exams. To apply any PANOPS procedure, we have to start with 3 non-negotiable assumptions. Every procedure is calculated assuming all engines are operative. The altitude is 2,000 feet above mean sea level, and the temperature sits exactly at the ISA standard of 15 degrees Celsius. This flight track is vertically sliced into safety zones. The center primary area occupies the inner half, guaranteeing 100% maximum obstacle clearance. The flanking secondary areas each take a quarter, where safety margins taper to 0 at the extreme edges. These cross-sectional rules form the mathematical foundation of instrument flight. Every departure, en route, and arrival regulation is explicitly engineered to keep your aircraft locked securely inside that primary area. Let's apply those margins to the departure phase. An instrument departure is dictated first by aerodrome operating minima, ensuring your runway visual range matches the required visibility limits. From there, your takeoff is either a straight departure, deviating 15 degrees or less from the centerline, or a turning departure. Often, ATC will assign a standard instrument departure, or SID. These are pre-coordinated, rigid sets of instructions that dictate your precise routing to clear local terrain and sync with navigation aids. This profile graph shows the primary formula controlling your climb-out, the procedure design gradient. The baseline PDG is 3.3%. It layers a 2.5% obstacle identification surface over a 0.8% margin. You must maintain this 3.3% gradient until reaching 120 meters above aerodrome elevation. Planners also account for close-in obstacles, defined as anything within 1 nautical mile of the departure end of the runway and under 200 feet in elevation. If you initiate a turn, the minimum obstacle clearance locks at a hard floor of 90 meters, or 300 feet. Looking at this grid map, you see the rules for omnidirectional departures without track guidance. To execute a turn, 3 constraints must be cleared: pass the departure end of the runway, reach 120 meters of altitude, and cover at least 600 meters horizontal distance. Omnidirectional departures fall into 4 specific categories: standard, using the baseline 3.3% climb; specified turn altitude; specified PDG, mandating a steeper gradient; and sector departures, restricting airspace wedges. ATC may offer radar vectors for obstacle clearance, but the regulations are clear. You must disregard departure radar vectors if you are already above the minimum safe altitude, or in the event of an engine failure. Departure regulations act as rigid geometric wedges. They guarantee the aircraft outpaces the surrounding terrain's elevation before you transition to the en route phase. Once en route, modern aircraft rely on area navigation, or Arnav. By using global satellite systems or VOR and DME triangulation, Arnav allows for direct point-to-point routing without forcing the aircraft to fly directly over physical ground stations. This map shows the 2 primary turning maneuvers used to navigate Arnav waypoints: fly-by and fly-over. Fly-by waypoints provide turn anticipation, advising the pilot exactly when to bank to smoothly intercept the next leg. Fly-over waypoints lack this anticipation, requiring the aircraft to physically cross the waypoint before initiating the turn. A third, less common method involves turning only once a specified altitude is reached. To tighten Arnav accuracy, the system uses augmentations. SBAS, a satellite-based system utilizing geostationary orbiters, achieves a full-scale deflection of just 0.3 nautical miles. GBAS provides similar tightening using ground-based reference stations. The highest tier of this precision is Required Navigation Performance, or RNP. RNP combines standard Arnav routing with onboard performance monitoring and alerting, an active feedback system guaranteeing the aircraft stays within its assigned corridor with 95% accuracy. This map contrasts satellite precision with ground-based navigation.
Traditional geographic fixes are tolerance areas subject to signal errors. Terminal Area Surveillance Radar, within 20 nautical miles, has a ±1.5 kilometer tolerance, en route radar, up to 40 nautical miles, has a 3.1 kilometer tolerance. DME equipment calculates slant height distance with a fixed tolerance formula of 0.46 kilometers plus 1.25% of the distance to the antenna. In the absence of an ILS, pilots use 75 MHz marker beacons to verify their altitude over these fixes. The transition from wide DME and radar tolerances to tight RNP corridors shrinks the aircraft's footprint of uncertainty, safely allowing much tighter routing. Leaving the en route phase requires a transition onto the approach chart. This is managed by Standard Instrument Arrivals, or STAR procedures. This diagram shows the STAR protection area. It acts as a funnel, beginning 25 nautical miles from the initial approach fix and narrowing down with a maximum convergence angle of 30 degrees on each side. Within this 25 nautical mile radius, the minimum sector altitude, also known as the terminal area altitude, guarantees at least 1,000 feet of absolute obstacle clearance. Once the aircraft hits the initial approach segment, track guidance intercepts the intermediate fix. Memorize these maximum interception angles: 90 degrees for precision approaches and 120 degrees for non-precision approaches. If direct track guidance into the intermediate fix is geometrically impossible from your current heading, you execute a reversal or holding procedure to align the aircraft. This wireframe traces reversals. For the 45/225 degree, fly outbound, turn 45 degrees for 1 minute, then execute a 225 degree turn inbound. The 80/260 degree procedure differs. Execute an 80 degree turn, immediately reversing into a continuous 260 degree teardrop turn inbound. Finally, the racetrack procedure uses two 180 degree turns, executed in the same direction, separated by timed straight legs, to safely burn off altitude and time. Stars and reversal patterns function as spatial funnels, systematically bleeding off speed and altitude while perfectly orienting the aircraft onto the localizer centerline. Entering the intermediate approach segment, the descent gradient is kept as shallow as possible. Because the aircraft is now aligned, the primary area's minimum obstacle clearance drops rapidly from 300 meters down to just 150 meters. This profile graph displays the allowed descent gradients. The standard approach glide path is 3 degrees, or a 5.2% gradient. Based on an aircraft's stall speed multiplier, steeper descents are authorized. Category A and B aircraft can execute descents up to 6.5%. Category C, D, and E aircraft are capped at 6.1%. Category H, designating helicopters, are permitted to approach at a steep 10% gradient. That brings us to the final approach, which is categorized into 4 distinct setups. First are non-precision approaches. These can be executed with a final approach fix located 5 to 10 nautical miles from the threshold, or without a fix, in which case a minimum decision altitude or height dictates your lowest safe limit. Precision approaches, utilizing ILS or microwave landing systems, provide exact vertical and lateral guidance. The final approach point is established exactly 3 to 10 nautical miles from the threshold at an elevation of 1,000 to 3,000 feet, riding a fixed 3-degree MLS angle. Pilots can also execute a continuous descent final approach. This is a non-precision technique requiring a constant rate of descent flown without leveling off until the aircraft is exactly 50 feet above the runway threshold. The final approach segment forces lateral error margins and vertical clearance limits to their absolute minimums right over the tarmac. From maintaining a rigid 3.3% climb gradient to clear terrain, to navigating the sub-nautical mile tolerances of an RNP corridor, down to the exact 3-degree geometry of an ILS glide slope. DGCA Chapter 13 outlines a continuous, mathematically engineered tunnel designed to eliminate spatial risk. Review your specific aircraft category limits, fixed tolerance ranges, and reversal timings to lock in these concepts for the exam. That covers the first half of Chapter 13. Part 2 is coming next, so hit the like button, subscribe, and share Pilot Arnav's channel to make sure you're fully prepped for your CPL. See you in the next one.